So a few episodes back, I told you about my oldest child getting his learner's permit and how the idea of him behind the wheel totally freaked me out. Well, we're a few months in now, and here's what I've learned. Teaching your kid to drive is less about one big moment and more about 100 little ones. We didn't start on the highway. We started in a parking lot. Then an empty park with a few winding roads. Then our quiet neighborhood. Then slightly busier roads. One red light. Then two. By the way, I use Waze directions, like Google Maps, there's Apple Maps, there's Waze. I use Waze, W-A-Z-E. I use Waze in my car, and my preferred Waze voice comes from the comedian Nate Bargatze. He cracks me up the whole time. No matter how many times I hear the things he says in there, they crack me up. But one of my favorite things he says is, in 1 mile, turn right. Right turns are one of the easiest turns. A lot easier than that other way. Makes me chuckle every time. He's joking, of course, but he's right. Correct. Not right. Correct. So yeah, we started with right turns. They are the easier of the two ways. And then we moved up to left turns, then right turns on busier roads, then left turns on busier roads. And each time we drove, I had him do a little more, go a little faster, a little more complex of a ride, a little more to think about. And honestly, that's what progress actually looks like, not just when you're teaching your 15-year-old how to drive, but in everything. As I sat in the passenger seat, pressing that imaginary brake pedal every now and then, I was reminded of a quote from Jim Carroll. He said, "Think big, start small, scale fast." And that's what we're doing with my son in the car, right? The big picture, it is big and it's clear. He needs to be road ready. But we're getting there intentionally, one drive at a time. But we're doing it regularly, right? We're started small, right, in the parking lot. We are scaling fast. Now he's driving on regular roads. And we're thinking big, him driving by himself someday, right? And it's the same in our classrooms. We want to grow as educators. We want to build future-ready learners who are critical thinkers and collaborators and are ready for whatever this world and AI throw at them, right? That's the thinking big. That's our big goal. But if we try to leap straight to that finish line and do too much too fast, it'll be worse than if I took my son driving on the highway on day one. That's the equivalent of it, right? We don't want to go driving on the highway on day one. You don't want to try to do everything in your classroom on day one either. So what if you just start in the parking lot, right? Instead of letting your kids use a full-fledged large language AI model right away, could you just have them interact with a really simple custom chatbot in Magic School? Instead of recording a podcast, could we start with recording a few responses to questions in a Padlet or with Emote? Those are just examples, but think about what's something really big you'd like to do that seems overwhelming, and how could we start small to get us to there? I recently read a reflection from an educator I support. She had just seen a presentation from another teacher, and she wrote in her reflection, "I can't possibly do all of that." And you know what? That's okay. She doesn't have to do all of that, at least not yet, because most big things don't happen all at once. They happen a little at a time with purpose and practice, scaling, right? Thinking big and scaling fast, one small step at a time, the way my son's driving skills are happening. But it's important to remember the think big part. We have to know what our goal is. We can't just do small things in our classroom if we don't know what we're trying to get to, right? Don't just start implementing AI or other ed tech tools because you think it's the next step. Do it because it's the next step on the journey to your ultimate goal. So we have to think big first. We have to have that goal, and then we take those small steps. Here's the tricky part, though. Taking those small steps often doesn't happen because we get caught up in the parent emails, the requests from the office, the planning for today's lesson, right? We get caught up in that day-to-day stuff. And so we have to remember that while those things are urgent, there are other things that are important, but not urgent. That's where those small steps fit, right? Using AI in a new way today, or using a new ed tech tool, or trying a new strategy, or giving our students some agency over what they're learning, those don't seem urgent, but they are important, right? They're important for getting us to our goal, but they're not urgent right now. But we have to scale fast. So, right, we have to keep doing those things to keep the scaling happening. And that's where the Eisenhower Matrix comes in handy. It is a time management tool used originally by President Eisenhower and later popularized by Stephen Covey. And it divides tasks into 4 quadrants: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither. So we're thinking about how urgent is something and also how important is something. When my son first got his learner's permit, we went weeks without practicing. We really did. He was ready to practice. We didn't start. I knew we should be doing it, but it was tough to find time to fit it in. Not because it wasn't important, but because it didn't feel urgent. And that happens to us in our classrooms too, right? It's something important, but it's not urgent, and other urgent things come up, so we don't do that thing. And here's the thing, if we'd waited until it was urgent to teach my son to drive, when it was time to take his test, he wouldn't be ready for that test. He wouldn't be ready to drive safely. And the same goes for us. If it's important, we can't wait. We have to prioritize it, even when there's no alarm going off to get it done. So with him, since learning to drive is important, we took it one step at a time, consistently scaling fast. In your classrooms, think about, what are those important things that it's time to stop putting off? What are the small steps that you can take to scale fast? You might not be ready for highway driving yet, but you could find a parking lot version of that think big thing and start there. Because when you start small, with the right vision, you could scale faster than you think.